topic then, just so I have that down?
Stress and stress management.
You're ready to go.
Alright. So today we're going to be talking about stress and stress management. So first off, does everybody know what stress is?
It's a feeling.
What kind of feeling?
It's like a chemical reaction in your body that makes you feel like lots of anxiety, like overwhelmed.
Yep, overwhelming feeling, can't control, but sometimes we have to manage in order to keep it from getting worse, which we will talk about. Anything else we could think of?
Part of your central nervous system.
Yep. Yep. Anything else? Anything big? No? No? Alright, so we're gonna watch a video on what stress is, how it affects your body.
Cramming for a test, trying to get more done than you have time to do. Stress is a feeling we all experience when we are challenged or overwhelmed. But more than just an emotion, stress is a hardwired physical response that travels throughout your entire body. In the short term, stress can be advantageous, but when activated too often or too long, your primitive fight or flight stress response not only changes your brain, but also damages many of the other organs and cells throughout your body. Your adrenal gland releases the stress hormones cortisol, epinephrine, also known as adrenaline, and norepinephrine. As these hormones travel through your bloodstream, they easily reach your blood vessels and heart. Adrenaline causes your heart to beat faster and raises your blood pressure, over time causing hypertension. Cortisol can also cause the endothelium, or inner lining of blood vessels, to not function normally. Scientists now know that this is an early step in triggering the process of atherosclerosis, or cholesterol plaque buildup in your arteries. Together, these changes increase your chances of a heart attack or stroke. When your brain senses stress, it activates your autonomic nervous system. Through this network of nerve connections, your big brain communicates stress to your enteric or intestinal nervous system. Besides causing butterflies in your stomach, this brain-gut connection can disturb the natural rhythmic contractions that move food through your gut, leading to irritable bowel syndrome, and can increase your gut sensitivity to acid, making you more likely to feel heartburn. Via the gut's nervous system, stress can also change the composition and function of your gut bacteria, which may affect your digestive and overall health. Speaking of digestion, does chronic stress affect your waistline? Well, yes. Cortisol can increase your appetite. It tells your body to replenish your energy stores with energy-dense foods and carbs, causing you to crave comfort foods. High levels of cortisol can also cause you to put on those extra calories as visceral or deep belly fat. This type of fat doesn't just make it harder to button your pants. It is an organ that actively releases hormones and immune system chemicals called cytokines that can increase your risk of developing chronic diseases such as heart disease and insulin resistance. Meanwhile, stress hormones affect immune cells in a variety of ways. Initially, they help prepare to fight invaders and heal after injury, but chronic stress can dampen the function of some immune cells, making you more susceptible to infections and slower the rate you heal. Want to live a long life? You may have to curb your chronic stress. That's because it has even been associated with shortened telomeres, the shoelace tip ends of chromosomes that measure a cell's age. Telomeres cap chromosomes to allow DNA to get copied every time a cell divides without damaging the cell's genetic code, and they shorten with each cell division. When telomeres become too short, a cell can no longer divide, and it dies. As if all that weren't enough, chronic stress has even more ways it can sabotage your health, including acne, hair loss, sexual dysfunction, headaches, muscle tension, difficulty concentrating, fatigue, and irritability. So, what does all this mean for you? Your life will always be filled with stressful situations, but what matters to your brain and the entire body is how you respond to that stress. If you can view those situations as challenges you can control and master, rather than as threats that are insurmountable, you will perform better in the short run and stay healthy in the long run.
All right. So after watching that, what did we get from that? What did we see? What were some big points?
There's a lot of side effects in the body.
What kind of side effects?
Hypertension. Acne.
Acne. Big one.
Telomeres break off your chromosomes and cause you to get old.
Yep. Old bastard.
Heart attack.
Heart attack. Yep. Heartburn.
You get fat.
You could, because it causes you to eat more stress food.
You also get ulcers.
Yep.
Digestive problems, sexual dysfunction.
Yep. All those things, and so do you remember what type of stress was explained in the video? What it said? Chronic stress. Yep. So there's actually 3 kinds of different stress. You have acute stress, which is the kind of stress you guys would get coming into exam, before an exam. Oh my gosh, am I gonna fail? Kind of everyday stuff that you guys are stressed about. Then we have episodic stress, episodic acute stress, which is basically acute stress but happens quite often and over some things that you guys may not stress about as much, but will. And then chronic stress, like we talked about here, is something that kind of wears and tears on you over a long period of time. Can happen in the past, or it can take effect right away. Just something that really damages you over time, causes severe anxiety, depression. Yep.
Can you give an example of each type of like what
acute,
kind of situation?
Coming in for a test, before a test, like not knowing what's going to be on it. Are you going to fail? Are you going to pass? Are you going to do good? Maybe you didn't study. Maybe you're even more stressed out. Chronic stress, maybe you lost your mom at a young age, still trying to cope with that after a few years, still having severe anxiety, depression, wear and tear on you. Yeah. Good.
What about that in between one?
The episodic chronic stress, acute stress, like the little things that you guys might not consider to be a stressful situation, maybe playing a video game or getting stressed out. Not normal stuff, but it will happen.
Like making sure, yeah, basically like it's continuous, but like it's not something that's like super stressing you out, but it's like
It's reoccurring acute
yeah, it's
stress.
like
Yeah.
So something like a project that has multiple
Yeah.
deadlines on it over a long period of time, so you're
making sure
going to
you
go through this process over and over again.
Have a little worry about.
So you guys talked about the effects of chronic stress, heart attacks, increased heart attack, heartburn, acne, a lot of other stuff. So next, I'm just going to talk a little bit about, we talked about those. So next I'm going to just explain that everybody experiences stress, no matter big or small, how long it lasts. We will all experience stress at some different level in our life, almost every day. And just, so now, I want you guys to write down one time where you guys felt a heavy amount of stress, and then I want you to say how you coped with that, what you did to lower your stress levels, if you did, or if you didn't do anything. You guys might have to write down too. But just think about that for a minute. keep in your mind. How do you cope with that, or if you did? All right, you guys. Okay. All right. So now we're gonna watch a video on one way to manage stress that person in the video gives. She believes it's very effective and everybody should try it. So.
The best way to manage your stress is to start with your body. First of all, you take your attention off the situation that's stressing you by getting some physical distance. And this can be anything from going into your bedroom to be alone for a minute, or even if you're in a meeting, you can say, I need to take a nature break, and go be by yourself in the restroom. Get that physical space. The next thing to do is to start breathing slowly and deeply. You'll hear this often because we can control what happens at the most basic level of the brain by deepening our breathing. That happens in the brain stem, and most animals can't control their breathing rates. Now, right around the brain stem, there's a part of the brain called the reptile brain, which reacts with fear to almost everything. And once your reptile brain gets stimulated, you will be in stress and fear unless you can actually circumvent that by going to the one part of the brain that is deeper, which is the brain stem. That's what deep breathing does, and that's why you'll hear so many people from so many cultural traditions and therapeutic traditions recommending that you start by watching and deepening your breath. At that point, when your breath is slow and deep, you start to notice that you only have to deal with the step that is beneath your feet. You do not have to think 10 minutes ahead. You do not have to think 10 years ahead. You can plan when it's time to plan, but when you do that, plan it calm. Other than that, just follow your plan one step at a time. I call it turtle steps. You just take one tiny step, knowing that you can pull back into your shell and reconsider before you take the next little tiny step. And that's the way long journeys are always made, one tiny step at a time. Once you've taken control of the physical aspects of stress, the next thing is to learn to observe your own thinking. Because when there is no physical threat in the room, the only thing you have to fear is the story you're telling yourself about something bad that's going to happen in the future. So, oh, I won't get enough sleep tonight. That's a fear story. Oh, I won't be able to pay the rent. Fear story. Maybe my sweetheart will desert me. Fear story. All of these are about things that haven't happened yet. Or you can have a stress-related situation based on your stories about the past. I didn't have a good childhood, so I can't be happy in the future. That guy who took my parking space was a real, son of a gun. Those are stories about the past. Animals live in the present, and that's why their immune systems and their circulatory systems are usually at rest. If we can stop thinking about past and future and be fully present by watching the mind, because the mind never stops thinking, the way we separate from it is to watch it without judgment. At that point, our sort of natural instincts kick in, the body calms down, and everything starts to look more friendly.
All right, so the technique we saw, so if you're experiencing a high level of stress, kind of removing yourself from the situation, removing yourself from that stressful situation, and then trying to take deep breaths in order to calm yourself on that deep brain stem where the stress takes place. And then she also talked about things that haven't happened yet, the fear stories, things that you stress about that haven't happened yet, occur in the future, kind of controlling those and making sure they don't take a hold of you, that you can't control that really. You have to take it one step at a time, right under you. Turtle steps. So has anybody ever tried this technique, like in their own kind of daily life? Taking a breath, removing yourself from the situation. Yeah. Did it work well? Does it work well most of the time? Yeah. I know I use it. It's very, very useful. Just kind of removing yourself so you don't have to deal with that. And taking deep breaths, controlling yourself, knowing that it's not going to affect you. You're not going to let it affect you that much, and you just have to control it. So next I want you guys to talk with your partners, just a couple people around you. Just discuss how you guys cope with stress, how you guys deal with that, how you manage stress. Whatever you guys do to manage stress, we all manage stress differently. So what do you guys do to manage stress? Just talk amongst yourself.
Yeah. Really gonna forget about everything. Venting to people. Yeah. Yeah, like distracting yourself. Like socializing. There's other ways, like more unconventional ways, like smoking, alcohol. Those aren't really healthy ways to cope.
All right. So, so what would what would a negative management of stress look like to you guys?
Baby.
Vaping, yes. We talked about last lesson. Yep. Anything else?
Alcohol.
Eric?
I see people use alcohol.
Alcohol, yeah, that's a good one. Depressant. Antidepressant.
Not facing the conflict in their life and not resolving any of the issues that they need to
Just
resolve.
ignoring it. Yep.
Yes.
Amanda?
Isolating yourself.
Isolating yourself, yeah, that's a big one. Isolating yourself, kind of making it feel like nobody is there for you when in reality you have lots of people there for you. Lots of people care about you. They're here to help. Kind of just reaching out. Yep.
I've seen people punch things to try to remove stress.
Punch things. Punching things is okay as long as
Not people.
it's not a person, something that causes harm to you, maybe a pillow, in your bed, something that won't hurt you
Walls.
physically or anybody else physically.
So something that's not destructive.
Something that's not destructive, yes. Yep. And then the last thing, I have an exit slip. You guys don't have to write this down, but just ask what is stress from the lesson. What are the two different types of stress? What is one positive way to manage stress? And then any remaining questions you guys have, you guys can put on there and ask if you don't want to ask in class. And yeah, that's it.
Can you die from stress?
What's up?
Can you die from stress?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then
Heart
I'm
attack.
gonna
No, and also fun fact, how she talks about the animals, zebras do not get ulcers like at all because
they're murdered.
they're either alive or they're dead.